That cart full of fresh, colorful groceries might look like the picture of health, but here's the truth no one likes to talk about. Hidden inside those bags and boxes are dangers that don't just spoil dinner, they can land people in the hospital. And for seniors, those risks can be deadly. From heavy metals in chocolate to dangerous bacteria on produce, a single healthy choice can have life-changing consequences. That's why today on Healthy Hues Wellness, we're breaking down the 9 grocery items seniors should think twice about and the 2 that are actually safe to keep stocked at home. Let's start with number 9 on the list, bagged salad mixes. These are the shortcuts so many of us rely on when we want a quick, healthy meal. You see the label that says pre-washed and ready to eat, you toss it in your fridge and you feel like you've made a smart choice. But that label isn't always the shield of safety, it seems. In fact, history tells a different story. Back in 2015, a Dole processing plant in Springfield, Ohio was linked to a listeria outbreak that spread across several states and even into Canada. 33 people were hospitalized, 4 people died. And in 2021, Fresh Express had to recall their Caesar and garden mixes nationwide after people in 13 states were hospitalized with the same infection. These weren't isolated cases. They were real seniors, real families burying loved ones, all because of a product that was supposed to be safe. Here's the scary part. Unlike most foodborne bacteria, listeria doesn't stop growing when it's refrigerated. While many germs are slowed down or destroyed by cold storage, listeria actually keeps multiplying right there in your crisper drawer. That bag of greens you bought on Monday might be 10 times riskier by Thursday. Seniors whose immune systems are often less resilient are the ones most likely to pay the price. And the contamination often comes down to something shockingly simple: a washing tank that wasn't fully sanitized, a drain leaking near a conveyor belt, or heads of lettuce mixed together from multiple farms. Because bagged salads are batched, just one contaminated crate can spread across thousands of packages in grocery stores nationwide. That's why recalls are so massive and so fast they have to sweep across entire supermarket chains. So what can you do? The lesson here is practical. A whole head of romaine or kale that you wash yourself carries far less risk than a premixed bag. And if you do buy bagged salad, eat it the same day you purchase it. Always check recall alerts from the FDA, USDA, or CDC. They're updated online in real time. Convenience feels good in the moment, but when the factory floor makes a mistake, you're gambling with a product that has already put hundreds of people in the hospital. Think about it. Have you ever opened a bag of salad that smelled sour, turned slimy too soon, or just tasted off? That isn't just spoilage, it's a reminder of how fragile food safety really is. A single contamination point can make its way into homes across the country. For a senior, that's not just an inconvenience, it can be a life-threatening risk. Ready to eat should mean safe to eat, but history shows that's not always the case with bagged salads. And that brings us to number 8, frozen berries. The smoothie shortcut, the dessert topping the easy freezer staple. On paper, frozen fruit sounds like the perfect deal: long shelf life, easy to blend, affordable. But in practice, frozen berries have been tied to multiple hepatitis A outbreaks and major recalls over the past decade. In 2016, imported frozen strawberries were linked to hepatitis A cases. Then again in 2022 and 2023, frozen organic strawberries from Baja California triggered another round of recalls and public health warnings from the FDA and CDC. Contaminated fruit was shipped nationwide, ending up in home freezers and restaurant kitchens. Anyone who used those berries raw-tossed in a smoothie layered on a dessert skipped the one step that could have made them safe cooking. Hepatitis A spreads when food or water is contaminated with traces of fecal material carrying the virus. It usually happens at the farm during packing or in transport before the fruit ever reaches the store. And here's the kicker: the virus survives freezing, so when you pull out that bag months later, the danger is still waiting. For younger, healthier people, hepatitis A can mean weeks of exhaustion, nausea, and liver inflammation. For seniors, the risk of severe illness is even higher and the recovery is harder. The solution is simple but powerful: cook or boil frozen berries before eating them. That single step kills the virus. Public health notices stress this again and again whenever outbreaks happen. If you see a recall notice, follow it exactly, throw the product out or return it, and if anyone unvaccinated has eaten it, call a doctor right away to ask about post-exposure vaccination. Those aren't overreactions. They're the steps that stop one bad batch from turning into a nationwide disaster. Think about your own habits. Have you ever made a raw berry smoothie and felt uneasy afterward? Did you ever see a recall notice weeks later and wonder if you'd eaten the wrong thing? Those moments remind us that contamination isn't rare. It's real, it's ongoing, and it hides in foods we think of as healthy. Frozen fruit is convenient, yes, but for seniors, eating it raw can be a risk not worth taking. Cooking it first may feel like a small extra step, but it's the step that could protect your health, and that's only the beginning. Because as we continue this countdown, you'll see just how many of the foods we think are safe can actually carry hidden dangers. Stay with me because what comes next might just change the way you look at your grocery cart forever. Frozen fruit has become a symbol of convenience in modern kitchens. A bag of berries in the freezer feels like a smart choice, long shelf life, easy to blend and affordable. But here's the overlooked truth. Freezing doesn't destroy hepatitis A, it preserves it. That means a bag of frozen berries can carry an infectious dose for months after harvest. When people use those berries raw in smoothies or thaw them for desserts, they skip the one safety step that could make the difference: cooking. Public health investigations repeatedly trace outbreaks back to a single contaminated supplier or farm, and from there the problem spreads across multiple brands and labels. That's why you'll often see nationwide recalls linked to frozen berries. For seniors whose immune defenses are less resilient, the risk is magnified. The practical lesson is clear. If you enjoy frozen berries, cook or boil them before eating. Heat neutralizes the virus and makes the fruit safe. This is not alarmism, it's the exact guidance issued by the FDA and CDC. When a recall notice appears, follow it. Throw the product away or return it, and if someone unvaccinated has already consumed the product during the exposure window, contact a healthcare provider about post-exposure vaccination or immune globulin. These steps may feel drastic, but they are precisely how public health officials prevent isolated cases from snowballing into large-scale outbreaks. Think about what sits in freezers across the country. A single contaminated harvest preserved by cold storage waiting to be blended into a raw morning smoothie. That's the fastest way for risk to spread directly into your cup. Frozen fruit is convenient, but for seniors, the pattern of hepatitis A outbreaks is a warning sign. Cooking first or skipping raw use entirely is the safer path. Now let's move to number 7, canned tuna. This pantry staple has been a budget-friendly protein for decades, showing up in millions of sandwiches, casseroles, and salads. It's lean-rich in protein and provides valuable omega-3 fats. On the surface, tuna looks like one of the smartest seafood choices. But hidden inside is a long-term concern that matters most for older adults: mercury accumulation. Not all tuna carries the same risk. According to FDA testing, albacore, often labeled as white tuna, contains about 3 times more mercury than canned light tuna, which usually comes from skipjack. That difference matters. The EPA and FDA jointly recommend limiting albacore to no more than 1 serving per week, about 6 ounces, while light tuna can be safely eaten 2 to 3 times weekly. These guidelines aren't trivia. They're safeguards built to protect long-term brain and kidney health. Mercury is a neurotoxin. It interferes with memory, attention, and processing speed. While public health campaigns often focus on children and pregnant women, the same risks apply to seniors. Over years of repeated intake, mercury can silently build up in the body, leading to real cognitive decline. In fact, a 2017 Consumer Reports analysis revealed that some canned tuna samples contained mercury levels twice as high as the FDA's own averages. That kind of variation makes the risk unpredictable, and for older adults, unpredictable exposure is exactly what you want to avoid. This isn't a call to eliminate tuna altogether. Instead, it's about treating tuna like a dosage. Rotate your proteins so tuna isn't the daily fallback. Keep albacore as an occasional option and rely on light tuna if you want it more often. Better yet, diversify your seafood. Salmon, sardines, and trout provide the same omega-3 benefits but with much lower mercury levels. That's the balance clinicians recommend: heart and brain benefits without the toxic trade-off. Here's the practical takeaway. Canned tuna is tasty, cheap, and convenient, but if it's showing up on your plate multiple times a week, the mercury adds up over time. Dose it wisely. Use light tuna for everyday meals. Make albacore the exception, not the habit. That simple adjustment helps preserve cognitive health and ensures seafood stays a friend, not a hidden risk. And with that, we arrive at number 6, deli meats. The cold cuts stacked behind glass at the grocery store and neatly sealed in plastic packages at supermarkets may look harmless, but for seniors, they carry one of the most persistent foodborne dangers in circulation today. Deli meats have long been a staple of the American diet. Sliced ham, turkey, bologna, salami, roast beef. The choices line supermarket shelves and deli counters, neatly packaged and ready to stack on sandwiches. They look safe, dependable, even wholesome. But the reality is far more dangerous, especially for seniors. Listeria monocytogenes. A bacteria with an unusual ability to survive and even thrive in cold environments turns deli meats into one of the rare foods that can harbor contamination for the long term instead of being slowed down by refrigeration. The very fridge people trust to keep food safe can become the perfect home for this hidden threat. This isn't just theory. In 1998, one of the largest listeria outbreaks in U.S. history was traced back to Bill Maher Foods, a subsidiary of Sara Lee. Hot dogs and deli meats from a single Michigan plant sickened over 100 people in 22 states and claimed at least 14 lives, most of them seniors. More than 2 decades later, the problem hasn't gone away. In 2020, another multi-state outbreak linked to deli meats hospitalized nearly every one of the 12 confirmed patients, and all 3 deaths were adults over 65. Between 1998 and 2018, the CDC connected more than 1,600 cases of listeria to ready-to-eat meats with a fatality rate around 20% far higher than most other foodborne pathogens. For younger healthy individuals, a listeria infection may mean only mild stomach upset, but for older adults, the consequences can be catastrophic. The bacteria often escape the gut and invade the bloodstream or nervous system, leading to sepsis, meningitis, or death. Surveillance data show that 1 in 5 seniors infected with listeria from deli meats does not survive. Pregnant women are also at high risk, but for seniors, the numbers are particularly stark and sobering. The problem is not limited to small local delis. Major national brands have faced recalls not just from meats sliced in local shops, but also from vacuum-sealed packages distributed across the country. Contamination can begin on slicers and cutting boards that aren't fully sanitized, or inside processing plants where one tainted batch of ham or turkey gets shipped to thousands of stores. Once listeria establishes itself in cold, damp areas, drains, slicer blades, storage drawers, it can linger, turning every batch that follows into a potential hazard. Picture a classic sandwich turkey on wheat with tomato and lettuce. It looks harmless, but the turkey may have been sliced on a contaminated blade. The lettuce may have come from a farm tied to an outbreak. The sandwich you expect to be safe could in reality be carrying an invisible and deadly risk. You cannot see, smell, or taste listeria. There is a workaround: cooking deli meats until steaming hot 165 degrees Fahrenheit or 74 degrees Celsius dramatically reduces the risk. That is why the CDC, FDA, and USDA all advise seniors and those with weakened immunity to reheat cold cuts before eating. But realistically, most people buy deli meats for the opposite reason: convenience. Very few want to microwave their ham or roast beef every time they make a sandwich, and yet habits are changing. After the 2020 outbreak, social media was filled with seniors and families announcing they had stopped buying cold cuts entirely, switching instead to fresh-cooked meats they sliced at home. Others decided to only eat deli meats when heated, folded into casseroles, stirred into soups, or pressed into hot sandwiches. These adjustments aren't fringe behaviors. They are practical responses to a food that has repeatedly landed vulnerable people in hospitals. Deli meat stacked in the fridge may look harmless, but for seniors it could be the most dangerous item in the drawer. A single slice might pass without incident, but history has shown again and again that listeria outbreaks linked to deli meats continue to recur. For older adults, that is not a background risk. It is a gamble with stakes as high as sepsis, meningitis, and fatal infection. Choosing whether or not to keep deli meats in the diet becomes less about convenience and more about survival. Cold cuts were once celebrated as the ultimate convenience food, the quick fix for a sandwich or salad. But for seniors, history has proven that these easy meals can carry risks that are anything but simple. And as we move forward on this list, sliding into number 5, we face another surprising category: plant-based meat alternatives. These burgers, nuggets, and sausages have been marketed as healthier, more sustainable options, but over the past decade they've become a growing source of recalls tied to both physical and bacterial hazards. The rise of plant-based meats has been nothing short of dramatic. By 2021, U.S. sales had topped $1.4 billion, fueled by promises of flavor that mimics beef or chicken without the environmental baggage or health concerns of traditional meat. Grocery store freezers quickly filled with patties, grounds, and strips ready to replace protein on the dinner plate. But as production scaled up, cracks in the system began to show. In 2022, Beyond Meat recalled thousands of pounds of patties after consumers reported biting into hard plastic fragments. That same year, Impossible Foods was forced into a recall because of mislabeling that left undeclared allergens in circulation, a dangerous mistake for anyone with soy or wheat sensitivities. Then in 2023, one of the largest producers of plant-based chicken nuggets pulled products from shelves after regulators flagged potential salmonella contamination. Earlier inspection reports from the FDA had already raised concerns about unsanitary equipment in some facilities, creating the perfect environment for listeria. Each recall carried the same stark instructions: discard immediately and seek medical help if symptoms appear. For seniors, these risks cut deeper. A healthy adult might recover from food poisoning in a few uncomfortable days, but CDC data consistently show that seniors account for a disproportionate share of hospitalizations and deaths linked to salmonella and listeria. Add to that the physical hazards: fragments of plastic or metal hidden in a bite that can cause choking, broken teeth, or even internal injuries. In review after review, it is seniors and children who suffer the worst consequences because their bodies don't recover as easily from shocks like these. The marketing of plant-based meats leans heavily on the image of clean eating, bright green fields, and rustic kitchens. But the recalls tell a story rooted in factory lines. These foods are highly processed. Soy pea protein and wheat gluten are ground-blended, extruded, and reshaped into burgers and nuggets by complex machinery. Every step creates another opportunity for foreign objects or bacteria to slip in. A glossy package might show a skillet sizzling with a plant-based patty, but what's inside often reflects more of an industrial process than the fresh, natural image being sold. It's also worth noting how different this is from traditional cuts of meat. A steak or chicken breast doesn't pass through extrusion or grinding machines. It doesn't risk picking up shards of plastic or metal along the way. That's why recalls for foreign object contamination are far more common in plant-based products than in whole cuts of beef or poultry. Plant-based meats may sound futuristic, but the risks they carry are old-fashioned bacteria thriving in unsanitary equipment and broken machinery, leaving dangerous fragments in food. For seniors looking to swap protein sources, the safest choice often comes from less processing, not more. Sometimes the so-called alternative ends up being riskier than the original. And now, coming in at number 4, we turn to a food that feels timeless and sophisticated: imported soft cheeses like Camembert and Brie. These creamy wedges may look elegant on a cheese board, but they have been tied to some of the deadliest dairy-linked outbreaks ever recorded. Public health investigations have repeatedly confirmed the danger of imported soft cheeses. In 2022, Brie and Camembert, sold under several popular brands, were recalled nationwide after tests found listeria contamination. The FDA issued a blunt warning that consuming these cheeses could lead to severe illness or even death, especially in seniors, pregnant women, and anyone with weakened immune systems. And this wasn't the first time. Past outbreaks have shown the same troubling pattern. Specialty cheeses contaminated during production, distributed widely, and consumed by vulnerable people who believed they were choosing something refined and safe. The reason these cheeses are so risky lies in their very nature. Soft cheeses have a texture and moisture content that make them perfect incubators for listeria. Unlike hard cheeses, which naturally resist bacterial growth, brie and camembert can sustain and spread contamination even under refrigeration. Imported batches face yet another layer of risk. International inspections are not always consistent, and bacteria can slip past checkpoints before the products ever reach American shelves. By the time an outbreak is detected, the contamination often stretches across dozens of brands and retailers, showing just how many labels can trace back to one compromised source. For seniors, the consequences are devastating. Listeria infections rarely stop at mild stomach upset. They often progress to bloodstream infections or meningitis. Hospitalization is common, and deaths are far from rare. The CDC has gone so far as to explicitly warn older adults to avoid soft cheeses made from unpasteurized milk. But even pasteurized versions are not immune. When sanitation fails at a factory, outbreaks have been tied to products that appeared perfectly legitimate and safe. There's also a cultural pull to these cheeses. Brie and camembert feel sophisticated, the centerpiece of a cheese board, the creamy topping for crackers or bread. But for seniors, that indulgence can be a dangerous gamble. The truth is that safer alternatives exist. Hard cheeses like cheddar, Swiss, or Parmesan carry far lower risks while still offering rich flavor and versatility. Choosing them can satisfy taste without compromising health. The allure of imported soft cheese is real, but so are the dangers. Each recall notice serves as a reminder that what looks refined can in fact become a direct line to a hospital bed. For seniors, adding these cheeses to the shopping cart isn't a harmless treat. It's a choice that health agencies have repeatedly linked to deadly outbreaks. And that brings us to number 3 on the list: apple cinnamon fruit pouches. These squeezable snacks, long marketed as clean, kid-friendly, and even senior-friendly options, shocked the nation in 2023 when testing revealed extreme levels of lead contamination. For years, fruit pouches promised convenience without the mess. Parents, caregivers, and older adults saw them as safe staples. But when the FDA and CDC confirmed the findings of independent labs, the truth was alarming. Several brands of cinnamon-flavored apple pouches contained lead at levels hundreds of times higher than what is considered safe. Some tested at more than 200 times the legal limit, triggering one of the largest recall alerts in recent memory. Lead exposure is especially dangerous. For children, it disrupts brain development and behavior. For seniors, it drives different but equally serious risks: kidney damage, cardiovascular disease, and accelerated neurological decline. An older adult already dealing with high blood pressure or cognitive changes may find their condition worsening rapidly if exposed to lead-tainted food. What makes lead so insidious is its silence. Symptoms don't appear right away. Instead, the heavy metal accumulates in the body over time, slowly eroding health in ways that can go unnoticed until it's too late. Investigators eventually trace the contamination back to the cinnamon supply chain. In poorly regulated environments, spices are sometimes adulterated with lead-based substances to boost weight or enhance color. That hidden contamination was carried into the fruit pouches. Once packaged and labeled with images of fresh apples and wholesome fruit, they landed on store shelves. Families and seniors bought them in good faith, unaware they were ingesting toxic metals. The fallout was swift. Dozens of children tested positive for elevated lead levels, sparking fear and frustration among parents nationwide. Pantries were emptied, products were discarded, and trust in what was supposed to be a safe everyday snack was shaken to the core. For seniors who often rely on fruit pouches as an easy-to-digest option, the danger was just as real: proof that even the most innocent-looking food can become a hidden threat when oversight fails. Apple cinnamon fruit pouches were marketed as safe, wholesome, and convenient, but what the 2023 investigation revealed shocked the country. What went less discussed was how many older adults relied on these products daily. For seniors with reduced appetite or difficulty chewing, fruit pouches seem like the perfect solution. Easy to digest, mess-free, and reassuringly labeled with pictures of fresh apples and sprinkles of cinnamon. Yet behind that glossy design sat an invisible danger. Lead has no taste, no smell, and no immediate warning signs. Seniors who consume these snacks regularly may have unknowingly exposed themselves to dangerous levels of the metal for weeks before the recall was announced. This is why fruit pouches earn the #1 spot. Not only because of the contamination itself, but because they shattered the illusion of safety in one of the most innocent-looking foods. The packaging whispered health, while the contents carried poison. For seniors, the lesson is sobering. Fruit pouches are not worth the gamble. Safer alternatives like whole fruit applesauce from trusted brands or even canned fruit and juice deliver the same nutrition without the hidden risk. The convenience of a squeeze pouch can never outweigh the possibility of toxic metals building up in your system. When the FDA announces lead levels 200 times the legal limit, that's no longer a snack, it's a health hazard sealed in plastic. Coming in at #2, we turn to Sprouts alfalfa, clover, mung bean, and other varieties. They look fresh, crisp, and nutrient-dense, the kind of ingredient that health-conscious shoppers toss into salads and wraps without a second thought. But Sprouts have a long history of being tied to Salmonella and E. coli outbreaks. The problem begins in how they're grown. Sprouts require warm, damp conditions to germinate quickly, and those exact conditions are perfect breeding grounds for bacteria. If the seed itself is contaminated before sprouting begins, the bacteria multiply inside the sprout as it grows. By the time it reaches your plate, the contamination isn't just on the surface, it's woven throughout the entire sprout. Washing won't remove it. Outbreak investigations have shown that one contaminated seed lot can trigger outbreaks across multiple states, since sprouting facilities often share the same seed suppliers. Once those sprouts are shipped to grocery stores or served at restaurants, they end up on sandwiches and wraps and in salads everywhere, spreading the risk with alarming speed. For younger people, an infection might cause a few miserable days of cramps and diarrhea. For seniors, the consequences are far more serious. Hospitalization is common, and in severe cases, the infection can be fatal. The CDC and FDA have been clear. Seniors and people with weakened immune systems should avoid raw sprouts altogether. If you love the flavor and crunch, cooking them until steaming hot will kill the bacteria. Otherwise, safer alternatives like cucumber slices, shredded carrots, or crisp bell peppers can give your meal the same satisfying bite without the same level of danger. Finally, at #1, we reach unpasteurized juices, apple cider, orange juice, and other fresh-pressed varieties. They are often marketed as all-natural and praised for tasting fresher than store-bought cartons. But without pasteurization, these juices are tied to outbreaks of E. coli, salmonella, and even norovirus. The risk starts at the orchard. Fruit can pick up bacteria from contaminated soil water or animal droppings. Even fruit that looks perfectly clean can carry pathogens on the skin. When pressed into juice, those bacteria are released into the liquid. Without pasteurization, a simple heating process that kills dangerous microbes, the bacteria survive and go straight into the bottle. Outbreaks from unpasteurized cider and juice have sickened entire families. For seniors, the danger is even higher. What starts as mild stomach upset can quickly escalate into severe illness when the immune system cannot mount a strong defense. The practical choice is straightforward. Buy pasteurized juice. The vast majority of juices sold in supermarkets are pasteurized, and they'll be clearly labeled as such. The risk arises with small vendors' juice bars or farm stands. If you're buying juice outside the grocery store, always ask if it's pasteurized. That simple question can mean the difference between a refreshing drink and a trip to the hospital. The bigger message is clear. The foods and drinks we trust most often are not always as safe as they appear. For seniors whose health can be more vulnerable, it is not paranoia, it is protection. To choose carefully read labels, and when in doubt, pick the option that reduces risk rather than increases it. Staying healthy isn't about giving up every favorite food. It's about knowing where the real dangers hide and making small, powerful choices to protect your well-being every single day. If your juice isn't pasteurized, it's best to skip it, or if you really want it, heat it yourself before drinking. Bringing it to a boil and letting it cool is enough to kill harmful bacteria. And for those who love the seasonal taste of cider, there's no need to worry about missing out. Pasteurized versions are widely available and taste almost identical, offering all the flavor without the risk. The key is simple. When you buy juice, check the label for pasteurization. That one small habit can save you from big health problems. Now let's shift gears and talk about something refreshing for once items that are actually safe for seniors to enjoy. The first is canned beans. Affordable, shelf-stable, and rich in protein beans are one of the rare grocery staples that consistently provide nutrition without making their way onto major recall lists. Kidney beans, black beans, chickpeas, pinto beans. The variety alone makes them a flexible choice whether you're cooking soups, tossing them in salads, or blending them into dips. What sets canned beans apart is the safety built into the canning process itself. Beans are heated to high temperatures under pressure, which effectively kills harmful bacteria and seals them in a sterile environment. Unlike deli meats or soft cheeses that can harbor listeria or plant-based meats that face contamination risks from machinery, beans simply don't provide the right environment for pathogens to survive. That's why recalls in this category are rare. Of course, there are small things to keep in mind. Many canned beans contain added sodium, which can be a concern for seniors managing blood pressure. But even that has a simple solution: just rinse the beans before using them. Doing so cuts sodium levels nearly in half, making them a safer, healthier option. The benefits far outweigh the drawbacks. They're packed with plant-based protein fiber to support digestion and minerals like iron and magnesium that many older adults need more of in their diets. Beyond nutrition, there's a human angle. Many seniors living alone want foods that won't spoil quickly. A can of beans can sit in the pantry for months and still be ready when you need it. That stability reduces waste, saves money, and adds peace of mind. In households on fixed incomes, every dollar and every safe meal matters. Beans don't just stretch your grocery budget, they stretch your safety margin too. Sometimes the simplest foods really are the best. The second safe item worth highlighting is frozen vegetables, the unsung heroes of the grocery aisle. While bagged salads and fresh berries often appear in recall notices, frozen vegetables are far less risky once cooked. The reason lies in the preparation. Before freezing, most vegetables are blanched, quickly boiled, or steamed, which reduces surface bacteria. Then freezing itself halts bacterial growth. As long as they're stored at proper freezer temperatures, they remain safe until you're ready to cook them. For seniors, this creates a much safer profile compared to fresh produce that may have traveled thousands of miles and sat on store shelves before making it to your kitchen. Nutritionally, frozen vegetables often hold up better than people assume. In fact, research shows that flash freezing locks in vitamins and minerals, sometimes preserving them even better than fresh produce that spends days in transit and storage. Frozen broccoli, spinach, peas. They're not just convenient, they're reliable sources of nutrients like vitamin C, vitamin K, and fiber. The only rule to remember is simple: cook them. Frozen vegetables aren't meant to be eaten straight from the bag. Heating destroys any residual bacteria that might have survived the blanching and freezing process. Once cooked, they become one of the safest and most nutritious items you can serve. Think about the convenience. Frozen vegetables cut down on prep time, reduce waste, and are available all year round. For seniors who may not be able to shop often or who tire easily in the kitchen, this makes a meaningful difference. A bag of frozen green beans doesn't just bring nutrients, it brings peace of mind that you're eating something safe. In a grocery landscape filled with recalls and warnings, canned beans and frozen vegetables stand out as rare safe zones. They prove that healthy, reliable options do exist if you know where to look. Staying healthy isn't about fear, it's about awareness, smart choices, and sometimes trusting the simplest staples on the shelf. Don't let hidden dangers in the grocery aisle steal your health. With knowledge and intention, you can keep your kitchen safe, your meals nourishing, and your future stronger.